Yo, I'm Bob. Into Marvel, happened to be totally blind since birth, talking about X-Men the Animated Series, Season 3, Episode 14, The Dark Phoenix Saga Part 1, Dazzled. So Dazzled premiered on November 12th in 1994. It is Episode 40 of the show overall in terms of chronology and script order. I remember this one quite well because this aired alongside the Dark Phoenix Saga Part 2. I also remember this audio promo that we got that previous week. See, kids, back in the 90s, you would have little episode promos when closing credits of a TV show would wrap up. As far as I know, it was just auditory. We probably got actual TV spots for it, but I remember this promo voiced by Catherine Disher. And she says something like, "This is Jean Grey, I feel a disturbance," and then you hear this crackle of electricity. And then her voice completely switches from Jean being compassionate, full of empathy, to just full on sinister. You've got Dark Phoenix, and she's letting everybody know, don't miss Saturday morning, 10:30 Central Time, something like that. Dark Phoenix Saga special premieres. I had no idea what in the heck I was in for. I hadn't even heard of Dark Phoenix until, I would imagine, Power Rangers wrapped up. The closing credits started, and you had Catherine Disher voicing Jean and doing this little episode promo just auditorily. It was such a cool little promo. I bet you can probably find it on YouTube somewhere. We got TV spots for it. I do remember that, but I think what sticks with me the most is the little audio bumper they made for the Phoenix Saga. They would do that on Nickelodeon as well. Like, you would hear Billy West voicing Stimpy, and other voice actors as well, kind of coming in during the closing credits and letting kids know about special episode events, things like that. Because there was really not much of an internet, and not a lot of us had access to it back in the 90s, and I'm pretty sure there wasn't that much info regarding all this stuff. So it was pretty much you had to be there to hear it in my case, and I would imagine there are quite a few other fans who remember that little promo as well. But we're introduced to quite a few new characters in part 1 of Dark Phoenix Saga. Of course, we're introduced to Dazzler at the very beginning because you've got Cyclops and Gambit at this club. We're introduced to the concept of the Dark Phoenix, and by this point in time, No Mutant is an Island hadn't aired yet. So, you did have Wolverine remind everybody that they were studying Genie like a lab rat on Muir Island in the Savage Land two-parter. But I don't know if that bit of dialogue stuck with me at the time when I saw it back in September. This was before I even had a VCR with a timer installed, so I didn't tape any of the episodes. I rarely taped them. So I forgot that bit of dialogue by Wolverine. And, you just see Jean at the beginning of the series, and Moira's trying to help her with some therapy. They're trying to figure out why Phoenix won't leave Jean's body. And I remember thinking, how the heck did we get from point A to point B? I remember really wanting this mystery to be solved, or at least them to mention how Jean got back to Earth. Of course they do, I think, later on in part 1. I'm sure we're given some visuals during Emma Frost's flashback. But yeah, we're introduced to Dazzler as Cyclops and Gambit are at a club seeing a show. Jean is scared to death, so she puts out a psychic call to Cyclops. And I like the scene where he heads outside and he's got to deal with Donald Pierce, part of the Inner Circle. So, see, back in the 90s, I had no idea who the Hellfire Club, those members were at all. They weren't allowed to use the word Hellfire in terms of Fox Kids broadcasting. I guess they were afraid that parents might accuse them of promoting Satanism, which I don't think they were. But the censors and certain parents were just nuts back in those days. And I guess I can understand why they didn't use it. I do think Inner Circle is a really sinister term. I mean, it is, of course, the inner circle of the Hellfire Club. I think it's their council, and there are far more members than just the inner circle. But yeah, I like the scene where you've got Pierce and Cyclops doing battle, and then Dazzler kind of blinds him, and then she thanks him. We see her again later in the episode, but man, that title's a bit misleading. I thought Dazzler would have played a more important role in the episode. I like that she kind of gets the ball rolling, though. I don't know if we see her again. If we do, it is in a cameo, a non-speaking cameo. I think this is kind of her biggest role in X-Men, but I like the character. She's a mutant named Alison Blair, if you've read the comics. I've only been able to read articles on her over the years. I like the character. I hope that she shows up in X-Men 97. Kind of like to see her and Warren Worthington having a little bit of a thing going at some point. Maybe they'll do that. But in this episode, yeah, she's just kind of sought out by the inner circle because they want her to join. And then, of course, they find her unworthy and they move on to Jean. I didn't think too much of the inner circle when I saw the episodes. I mean, that's not to say I didn't like them. I didn't know who the heck they were. They just seemed like a snobby group of mutants to me. Very rich, very sophisticated mutants, mutant elitists, I think. And I do remember Emma Frost leaving something of an impression on me. I liked her voice. I thought she seemed like a really sinister character. And outside of that, I didn't know any of the other mutants in terms of what their powers were because it was such a visual showcase. I was glad that they kind of revealed that through some dialogue. I mean, you've got Sebastian Shaw who can absorb the energy those other mutants use against him. You've got, of course, Pierce, who's, I guess, half cyborg. I liked Wingard, although he's a bit of a creep. I do remember kind of being a bit disgusted with him as he infiltrated Jean's mind thanks to Emma Frost. I like how they mention yet again how distracted Xavier's been. And I like that they give a little bit of a clip show, not too much of one, but we are reminded of those scenes in the Phoenix Saga where Professor X was kind of going through a lot in terms of the psychic probe there. And while all that was going on, you had Emma infiltrating Cerebro and learning all she could about Jean and Phoenix. And this is what leads her to discovering, just how Jean got back to Earth. And I guess we are let in on that in terms of visual scenery going on there as she is narrating the flashback. She's kind of talking Jean up to the rest of the members of the inner circle. So I like that we got, I would imagine, you probably saw Professor X heading to wherever Jean was in the Blackbird, possibly other X-Men too. I don't know because there's no audio description for this episode. But I like that, we're kind of let in on just how she got back to Earth. Now that, of course, that we have No Mutant is an Island, we did get to see that moment where they discover that she's alive. It's so crazy that some of these episodes didn't get finished, so we had to wait, I think, around 2 years before I guess I could call it an epilogue to the Phoenix Saga would even air. But yeah, such a fantastic episode as a whole. I think one of the scenes I remember creeping me out was where you had Wingard infiltrating Jean's mind, and he kind of gaslights her. He's like, oh, well, the other life that you knew was just a dream, and none of that really ever happened. Your destiny's with me. You need to come find me. And such a really bizarre, really creepy scene as he is constructing that dream world in her head, trying to woo her over to the inner circle. And then, of course, you've got the action scene toward the end of the episode when Cyclops goes back to the club, and then you've got Jean as Dark Phoenix there. Dark Phoenix is kind of bleeding through, and she's, of course, jealous of Dazzler, but Cyclops is just wanting to go there and ask her about her powers. And, we see Dazzler for just a minute, and as Jean leaves with Jason Wingard, that's it. She kind of just goes off and does her thing. As I said earlier, I hope she comes back in 97. And then we flash to the X-Men finding the Inner Circle's New York chapter base, I guess. And, you've got a fight scene that lasts for the majority of the remainder of the episode. The X-Men do what they can, but they are ultimately betrayed by Dark Phoenix. And I almost wish this episode had ended on a cliffhanger and we'd gotten this episode stretched out over 4 weeks instead of a special. But I'm glad that they did air it this way because it really felt like an event. I do like watching them split up because I think it helps me digest the characters a bit more. When it comes to 2-parters, 3-parters, things like that, I don't really like them edited together. I like them split up into their respective episodes. So I'm glad that they have always been available this way on, Disney Plus. You could buy the entire Dark Phoenix saga on VHS back in the day. I think that was split up into 4 episodes. It was on the same VHS tape, but it was split into 4. And it's available like that on Prime. So I like how the episode ends with Jean and Jason having this Vegas wedding, and then you've got Jean helping the Inner Circle take down Storm. You have Wolverine dumped into the sewers. You've got Cyclops taken out. You got Beast and Gambit taken out. They've shown up to help too. But yeah, everyone is down for the count. And they're all welcoming Jean as Dark Phoenix into the Inner Circle or the Hellfire Club. I wonder if they'll call them the Hellfire Club on X-Men 97. I would imagine they could if they wanted to. But who knows? As I film this video on March 5th, 2024, X-Men 97 hasn't aired yet. So this might be past me that you guys are listening to if the show's begun to air. Hopefully this will premiere before the actual series airs. I don't know if it will or not. I've got a lot of other videos to publish. But yeah, I think one of the things that stood out to me in this episode was probably Emma Frost's personality. She left something of an impression on me. She sounded very sinister as a character, and I honestly thought we were going to be seeing more of these mutants, but we only see them in parts 1 and 2 of the Dark Phoenix saga, and that's it. So I really hope that this group shows up in X-Men 97 because I really want to know more about them. I remember seeing Emma in some 90s film. Was it was some kind of mutants film, like Mutant X, Generation X, something like that. You had, I think, Matt Frewer in it. I remember seeing certain parts of it on TV. I was doing a lot of homework at the time. They mentioned Xavier's School, and I do remember seeing Emma in that and wondering, why the heck is she a good guy? She was a bad guy in the Dark Phoenix saga. So I remember wondering if she would ever try to turn over a new leaf in the animated series, because the animated series, of course, was still airing at the time, but we didn't see that, of course. But I really hope that we get to see her doing more in X-Men 97. So next time we're going to be talking about the Dark Phoenix Saga Part 2, The Inner Circle. So be here for that. I think this whole 4-parter is a phenomenal miniseries. It's one of my favorites. I love these long soap opera style X-Men miniseries, rife with cliffhangers, recaps, shocking twists and turns, and hopefully we'll get a lot of that in X-Men 97. I'm talking about that an awful lot because I'm getting excited about that particular series more and more as the day draweth nigh. Anyway, till next time, guys.